Hello everyone, thank you all for being here today. Thank you Bitcoin for Corporations, and thank you Strategy for leading the Bitcoin movement for corporates around the world. I am Alexandre Laizet, Deputy CEO and Director of Bitcoin Strategy at the Blockchain Group, Europe's first Bitcoin Treasury company listed on Euronext Growth Paris, ticker ALTBG. We have now 800 plus Bitcoin on the balance sheet, and we just announced yesterday a new raise of more than 500 BTC to raise our Bitcoin holdings to more than 1,400 BTC, placing us in the top. Thank you. Placing us in the top 30 and close to 20 Bitcoin treasury companies around the globe. So the context today is that Bitcoin is being adopted at scale by financial institutions and by governments around the world. Bitcoin is the top performing asset over the last 15 years. Bitcoin has seen the rise of the most successful ETF of all ETFs in history. And Bitcoin is the only asset the United States does not want to sell and plans to accumulate. And so, as you all know, the only thing better than Bitcoin is more Bitcoin. And Bitcoin treasury companies can provide more Bitcoin by focusing on increasing Bitcoin per share over time. We have Strategy for America and the world, a top performing stock over the world over the last 5 years. We have Metaplanet for Asia and for the world, top performing stock over the world last year with more than 2,000, 3,000% performance. And now, as of today, even 4,000, 5,000%. And now we have the Blockchain Group for Europe, now more than 2,000% performance. The number one stock performing traded in Paris out of all stock traded in Paris. And the playbook is extremely simple. The playbook is to raise capital, accumulate Bitcoin, hold the Bitcoin forever, don't sell the Bitcoin, and don't lose the Bitcoin. And most people struggle with just executing the playbook. And the difference and the premium is attributed to the market players that focus on increasing Bitcoin per share over time. Everything else is a distraction, and that's what I do every day. I am 121% focused on increasing Bitcoin per share. And so what has done the focus on Bitcoin per share increase over time is that we have 10x the number of sats per share over the last 7 months. And so a holder of the Blockchain Group had 40 sats per share back in December 2024. And today it has more than 400 sats per share. And that's not even accounting for our last raise of yesterday. And so that's how you are able, by focusing on Bitcoin, to outperform Bitcoin by about 10x. And when you look at the performance, well, if you take a closer look, you see that over 1 month, 3 months, 6 months, you see that the Blockchain Group is literally following the exact steps of Strategy and of Metaplanet, and even exceeding, because we are, of course, benefiting from the fact that the playbook is being recognized in the world as we go. And the second conclusion of this chart is that you have Metaplanet achieving the same results and even exceeding the results of Strategy over 5 years, but in 1 year. And if you take into account our stock performance as of today, we are realizing the same performance as Metaplanet in 1 year, but in 7 months. And thank you. But this is not a competition. I want to emphasize the fact that we are not in a competition. We are in the same race, and we are adopting the same assets. We are racing towards the Bitcoin standard, and we are adopting it all as part of our treasury. And the playbook is extremely simple, but in fact, you need a very strong and a very lean and focused team on Bitcoin. And that's what we have assembled at the Blockchain Group. We have, as the chairman of the board, Jean-François Descaves, the ex-president of a top-performing asset manager in France. We have Ludovic Chauchin-Laurent, the co-founder of Capital Union Bank, the largest bank in the Bahamas. And we have Jean-Philippe Casadepec-Soulet, the founder of one of the operational companies in France, leading data and AI analytics. And myself, a Bitcoin maximalist dedicated to implementing the strategy playbook at European scale. As you can see, we have strategic investors, among which Fulgor Ventures, the largest Bitcoin VC fund around the world. We have legend Adam Back, the only person mentioned in the white paper. He has now more than 10% of ownership in the blockchain group. And UTXO Management, the leading company investment arm of Bitcoin Magazine, investing in Bitcoin treasuries around the world and part of our growth as well since March of this year. And of course, last but not least, Tobam, a leading 2 billion French asset manager who has been together with us since December and since the launch of our strategy back in November, and who has published a paper about Bitcoin treasury companies that I highly recommend you reading to understand how Bitcoin treasury companies can outperform Bitcoin with constant premiums. And so that's a mathematical paper that Tobam has published about strategy. And the conclusion is that if you are bullish on Bitcoin, you should be bullish on Bitcoin treasury companies. And if you are bullish on Bitcoin treasury companies, you may want to have a look at early-stage Bitcoin treasury companies. And so assembling this team has allowed us to become Europe's first and largest Bitcoin treasury company with operational activities in data analytics, AI, consulting development, and as well blockchain development that we intend over time to pivot towards Bitcoin as a consulting activity and of course as part of our securities issuances. LTBG is now entering its acceleration phase. I will come back to this later on about our capital raising operations, but we have over 7 months 100x our volumes. We started with a market cap of 15 million. We are now at a market cap of more than 300 million. It's even 1 billion market cap if you take into account the fully diluted shares. And we are the #1 stock performance in France. We are the #1 stock discussed in the forums for French investors. In France, we are literally the only solution for French investors that want to have a Bitcoin allocation into their tax wrappers in France that have exemptions. And we have generated 861% BTC yield year to date. That is not even accounting for the 600 BTC that we are about to add to our balance sheet to raise towards 1,400 BTC. So what are the key milestones of our Bitcoin treasury company strategy? We started the strategy back on November 5, 2024, and we have raised 3.5 million euros at 40 to 70% of premium on top of the 20-day moving average. And after this, we have wanted to scale the model and ask for the permission to raise up to 300 million euros of capital. And 2 weeks after, we have announced the first worldwide BTC-denominated convertible debt, which is in fact taking the best out of the convertible debts that were leveraging strategy, but removing credit risk for the company and basically allowing us to raise capital ad infinitum through an SPV in Luxembourg on a BTC standard. We have completely skipped fiat. And our investors subscribe directly in Bitcoin. We receive Bitcoin. We add Bitcoin to the balance sheet. The stock goes up as a result of the BTC yield that we generate. And we extremely fast are able to have the conversion strike price reached. And what we have demonstrated is the stock performance that you can see from March this year and towards now. And that stock performance since the issuance of the convertible debts back in March is now 800%. And after this 50 million raise that we did with Fulgor Ventures, Adam Back, UTXO Management, Tobam, and Ludovic Chauchin-Laurent, we have now in about 2 months raised about 100 million of capital. We have raised through equity at premiums to the stock price in ATM-like private placements, Of course, there is a delay, and sometimes people ask me, why is there a discount appearing with the stock price? Well, the fact of the matter is to conduct a private placement in France, it takes about 1 week, 2 weeks between the administrative processes, receiving the funds, and so on. But the stock price is really defined at the moment with the investor on an ATM-like structure that has allowed us to raise about 20 million euros, and that has allowed us to have generally about 1 trillion asset manager in Europe that is now a shareholder of the blockchain group, together with Tobam, and we also have Rothschild as part of the shareholders. And so yesterday we announced another round of our BTC-denominated debt that has allowed us to raise 60 million euros and towards acquiring about 600 BTC. So the price in euros is fine, and actually we should update the numbers because today we did again plus 30%. But what is most interesting is to look at the price in sats, because euros is going to the ground, and what is important is the purchasing power in terms of sats, in terms of Bitcoin. And if you look at it, the price of the share at the beginning of the year was about 200 sats, and now the price of the share is about 2,000 sats. And so what this means is we have outperformed Bitcoin by about 10x. What this means is the same number of sats give you 10x less shares today to buy of the blockchain group. And what this means is that by acquiring a Bitcoin treasury company, it's literally the best risk-adjusted way to outperform Bitcoin over the long term. I'm not talking about short term because it's extremely volatile, but I'm talking about long-term strategy. And this performance, we have realized it without even starting to do ATM-like programs like Metaplanet. We have not even started to do convertible debt at scale like Strategy, and we have not even started to do public offerings. And so that shows you just the level of demand that there is today over the world for Bitcoin treasury companies, and the level of demand that you have in France today from French investors and the global market for Bitcoin treasury companies. And we are not even yet having a ticker in the US. And so we have seen what that has done with Metaplanet, we've been asked to do, and of course, we are considering it. So what about our capital raising capacity? Over 5 months, we have raised 50 million, and over the last 2 months, and to be more precise, over the last 3 weeks since Strategy World last month, we have been able to raise 100 million. And so that has about 100 million euros of capital raised. And on June 10th, we are asking our general meeting of shareholders to approve a new capital raising capacity to scale of more than 10 billion euros to go even faster. If we look at LTBG returns on a Bitcoin standard era basis, what you can conclude is that if you are not adopting Bitcoin on your balance sheet, you are going to the ground as a stable coin. And that is the case of all these major companies around the world, in the US, in France, Hermes, L'Oréal, and so on. If you don't have Bitcoin on the balance sheet, you are just valued on top of your cash flows, and your cash flows are in fiat, and fiat is going to zero, so you are worth nothing in Bitcoin terms. This chart, if you were going to put that on the Bitcoin standard, everything would be red, because everything is underperforming Bitcoin, and 99% of asset managers are underperforming Bitcoin. And the only companies that are basically able to sustain an outperformance of Bitcoin are Bitcoin treasury companies, and the blockchain group is Europe's leading Bitcoin treasury company. How have we done that? Well, we have 20x our number of Bitcoin on the balance sheet since November 2024. We went from 15 BTC to 40 BTC to about 580 BTC added to the balance sheet with about 620 BTC, 847 BTC, and now, when we will be announcing the completion of our latest transaction, more than 1,400 BTC. An even more interesting chart is the chart showing how we are able to monetize the premium. What you can see is that we are one of the highest premiums generating company with raises at about 5 to 10x premiums over the net asset value of the Bitcoin. And what shows you this chart is that we are able to monetize the premium in about 4 to 5 months. And our benchmark is about 6 to 16 months. Well, when you have 4 to 5 months, when you are able to monetize and to have the investment of your investors monetized after 4 to 5 months, and after that it's just more BTC yield, well, that's extremely accretive strategy. And how do you get that? Well, you focus on Bitcoin, you put all of your long-term capital into Bitcoin, and you focus every day, every morning, every night, every day on BTC yield as much as possible and in the most accretive way and as fast as possible. So what this shows in terms of the balance sheet is that the BTC euro gain that we have been able to generate over the first 6 months of the year is now 25x of the net result of the company for the whole last year. And so the net result for the operational company was 1.3 million last year, and the Bitcoin BTC euro gain for the first 2 quarters is already about 30 million. So we are really on a Bitcoin standard, and we are really a Bitcoin treasury company securitizing Bitcoin for capital markets and to meet the global demand. And we have bold ambitions. We have published our plan for the next 8 years. We ambition to acquire as much as 1% of the total BTC supply. Of course, that's an ambitious goal. It's taking into assumption about a 30% Bitcoin CAGR, which is realizing today about 30 to 90% over the last 5 to 10 years. And so taking this assumption, we would be able, if we execute the plan, to go to about 1% of the total BTC supply. And if we execute this plan, if Bitcoin reaches about $1 to $2 million or euros by the next 4 to 8 years, we could have the potential to becoming Europe's largest publicly traded corporation. Thank you very much, all.